You found him? That's what I'm talking about. So where was it? Tops! Is it Tops? Heck of a deer, Aaron. That is a stud, Aaron. You got him, buddy. This is a deer that me and Aaron have had history with for a long time. Yes, sir, it is. Very impressive. That is a stud, Aaron. Off below route there. You got him, buddy. What'd you do, Aaron? What'd you do? What'd you do? Deer of my life, man.
The first pictures that we got of Tops was in February of 2022, right after the 2021 season had concluded. And we knew he was going to be a good deer. He was a mainframe 10-pointer with 2 kickers coming out of the bases of his antlers. And as the year went on, he shed his antlers, and in the summer we started putting in the work for the 2022 season.
All right, so I've been thinking. I have a camera in there, like over on the other side of this opening right here, and there's a big field. And I've noticed that deer will come from up on this hill here, and they'll cross the creek here, and they'll come up on this side, or sometimes they'll come straight up on this side. But most of the time, I'll always get pictures over there on the other side of this. 90% of the time, they'll come straight through this opening, and they'll either shoot up this hill, or they'll keep going straight, which I have another camera back there. Now, the question is, there's a really nice tree right here on the inside of this opening. Now, that could be good for the deer coming through this way, and the deer coming through that way. Or my camera is tucked in these bushes right here on these trees. My mineral site is right around there somewhere. So I was either thinking about that tree I just showed you, or this tree here facing that way, because that's another opening that they come through. I don't know which would be better, whether or not to set the stand in that tree, wait for them to come through here, or set the stand in this the stand in this tree, wait for them to come through here. So
when we first got Tops on camera this past year, he was hitting the same mock scrape that he hit back in February, and he blew up. His left side kicker had grown out, and he was an absolute giant. We knew that he was going to be on the hit list. Along with Tops, we had some other really good bucks out on the same property. We had 2 big 10-pointers that we called the free throw buck and Stacks, and we also had 2 really good 8-pointers out there that we called Gene and Hoops. All 4 of those bucks have been regularly showing up in the daylight, except for Tops. Tops would only show up at about midnight. So opening day of 2022 deer season rolls around, and Austin and I climb up in the stand. We sat there for a good hour and a half or so without seeing anything, and then about an hour before sunset, 2 does come out. And we were watching them, and then we realized that one of the big does had a broken leg, and neither of us would have felt right about letting her walk off like that, so Austin decided to take a shot on her. We were going to get that shot on camera, but I forgot to press record on the camera. Yay me.
Got a big doe here, big doe. She was quartered away from me. She was almost directly underneath me at about 10 yards, so it was a perfect shot. She died right in her tracks. I mean, we were up there. She's a goner. So we're gonna, first blood of the season. Freaking super stoked. We're gonna get her cleaned up here.
So we get that doe taken care of, processed. And then we decide the next morning that we're going to head back out, and we are glad that we did. We got in the tree and sat there for a couple hours, and it was a real gloomy morning, and then I look over in the field to the left of us, and I just see nothing but rack. Tops, and we think it was Stacks that was standing with him, were in the field about 70 yards away from us, and then one of them started to come our way. Just as we thought it was about to happen on the second day of the season, all of a sudden here comes a big rain. And both of the bucks marched down the hill into the holler. We sat there for another couple hours or so waiting on them to come out, but they never did. And the rain started to get to us, so we headed out. Unfortunately for me, school started to get really busy, and I wasn't able to come home and hunt as much. So Austin started spending a lot of time in the woods hunting this deer.
So I started to spend quite a bit of time in the woods hunting either tops or stacks. I had more of my eyes set on stacks than I did tops. But I mean, obviously I wasn't going to pass on either deer. The only reason why I wanted to hunt stacks more than tops was just because stacks was daylighting more. I had a lot of history with him, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures dating all the way from July until just recently, honestly. But more or less, I was just trying to hunt. I was out there to try to shoot a good buck. And I wasn't going to shy away from any opportunity that any deer gave me. Fast forward to probably late September, I actually had an encounter with one of our shooters. His name was Hoops. And of course, you guys have seen that video. I ended up taking that deer just a few weeks ago. But I had missed a shot at Hoops in late September. I had just skimmed the top of his back. And of course, I wasn't too upset about it because we still had bigger deer out there. And I knew that that deer was fine. And probably we were going to see him again. And we ended up seeing him again, obviously, because I ended up taking him later in November. However, a few weeks after that incident, I had my first daylight encounter with tops. He came in behind me, just downwind of me, probably 20-25 yards from my tree stand, and he busted me. And that was pretty unfortunate for us. Just, I mean, the amount of time we put in to trying to hunt this deer, and when you have that deer that you've been wanting to see in the woods bust you, it's kind of disappointing. But I had another encounter with that deer a couple weeks after that. So right at the beginning of November, I had an encounter with him in daylight in the morning.
Out here on this property, I just set up my cell camera yesterday, and I had a notification at about 1 a.m. this morning, and I check it, and it's the big 12-pointer that we've been after on this property that we named Tops. He showed up last night, and I actually had my first daylight encounter with that deer about 30 minutes ago. He came off this hill in front of me, and instead of coming straight towards me like they normally do, he took a right and followed a trail of does that were on the corn this morning. So I couldn't have got a shot at him. He wasn't too far, but he was just behind a bunch of stuff.
That deer he was smart, he was older, and he knew his way around the woods, and he knew his way around me. So I was also hunting another property at the time. I was hunting 2 other deer on another property, and decided to give Aaron a shot at hunting the spot by himself and kind of disperse and get away from each other for a little bit and try to hunt on 2 different properties at the same time and increase our odds of seeing some big deer.
So it was the morning of November 9th. I had came in from school on a Wednesday. I didn't have anything to do that day, so I figured, what better thing to do than to get out in the woods and try to kill a big buck. It was about 5:30 when we got in the woods. I climbed up in the tree at a different property. Sat there till about 9:30. Didn't end up seeing anything. Austin actually saw a small 8-pointer that morning. And I had heard him chasing a doe coming down the hill. But I ended up not seeing anything and not getting a shot at anything. We had seen a lot of small bucks on this property and the other property, so we know that these places are going to have some really good potential in the next few years. So after we got out of the stand, we started making plans for what we were going to do that evening. I told Austin that I really wanted to go out and hunt the property the Tops was on. Just because, we hadn't really hunted it in the evening, and we didn't really know what was going to happen. So we went out and bought some corn and some apple powder, and we got up there at around 10:30, and we set it out. We headed back to the house, and then we took a nap. We were absolutely exhausted. Then we woke up at about 2 o'clock, met up with Austin's Uncle Martin, and then we hit the woods. Austin and Martin went out to the other property, and I went out to the property that Tops was on. I sat down at about 2:30, 2:45, and I'd been sitting there for maybe about a half hour. And I thought I heard something behind me, so I turned around and looked. I didn't see anything, but as soon as I turned back around, 70 yards up the hill from me, there was a big doe. Me and her locked eyes for a good minute and a half. And she stomped at me, blew, and took off. And I was just like, well, daggone it, there goes my hunt for the evening. But I decided to stick it out. And before I know it, 45 minutes later, I hear something coming off the hill to the left of me, and it's a doe. She comes down and she starts to cross the creek, and then I hear some more rustling behind her, and I look up and I see a rack that I had no clue how big he was. He was too far away and in too much thick stuff. Then he starts walking down the hill towards me and comes out at 50 yards, and then I see that he is a giant. By this time, I'm already shaking so bad that I didn't even know what deer it was. I just knew that he was big and that I need to try to get a shot at this deer. He comes in at 40 yards to the left of me down in the holler, and I am an absolute nervous wreck. This doe starts coming up the hill towards the corn pile, and thankfully she turned away from me long enough just to be able to get my rangefinder out of my pocket. He's standing down in the holler broadside to me, and I'm able to get my rangefinder up to my eye, and I click the button, and I'm just able to make out a blurry little 4-0. I was just like, okay, 40 yards, I can make this shot. So I'm able to sneak my rangefinder back in my pocket, and I put my 40-yard pin right behind her shoulder, and I let her fly. I heard a little bit of a delay and then a thud when it hit his body. And then you could have heard a pin drop after that in the stand. I watched him run about 50 yards uphill, and he tumbled. And at that time, all of my emotions just broke loose at one time. I wanted to cry, I wanted to scream. I was just on cloud 9. I called Austin, and I'm hyperventilating on the phone, telling him I just shot the biggest deer of my life.
So I'm having a pretty good hunt. I'm on a different property. Me and Martin are there together. I had seen probably 3 deer that evening, but they were all, I think, 2 does and 1 button buck. And I mean, it wasn't anything too crazy exciting, but it was still pretty early. I mean, I got a phone call from Aaron probably around 5 o'clock. Maybe not even that. I think it was 4:50, 5 o'clock, somewhere around there. We still had about an hour and a half left until sunset. So Martin had seen 2 big bucks down the hill, but they were just out of bow range for him. So we weren't too worried about that, but I just received a phone call from Aaron, and the first thing he says is, I just shot the biggest deer of my life. And obviously, I thought he was messing with me. That's something that we do a lot together, is we just give each other crap, and we always tease each other and say we've shot big deer whenever all we saw was a spike. So immediately I was like, you're joking, you're messing with me. And he said, no, I'm not messing with you. I think I shot one of the big ones, either stacks or tops. So, you know, I get pretty tore up over deer, and I know that when Aaron gets tore up over deer, it's something impressive. So I had no hesitation to get out of the stand immediately, didn't care what I was going to see for the rest of that set, and head over to Aaron to try and see if we can find this deer.
Alrighty guys, so this normally isn't like me, but I'm coming out of the woods today at 5:40 because I just got a phone call from Aaron. He's on the other property right now, and he just told me he shot the biggest deer of his life. We're super hyped, super pumped. We're gonna go help him find it. I'm about 90% sure. See, I'm out here on the property with the broke 7 buck and Sig and the Sky High buck, and Aaron's on the property with Stacks, Tops, and Gene and the free throw buck, and he's pretty sure he shot one of the big ones, either Stacks or Tops. I feel like the good Lord's telling me that it's Tops. We'll see when we get there. I'm super hyped for him. I'm so pumped for him. It being my target deer this year, you know, I put him in the spot. I told him, I said, you know, you can shoot whatever you see, man. You know, it doesn't matter to me. So he's called me, big buck down. He's super pumped. We're gonna go help him find it. So you guys stay tuned.
So obviously I'm freaking out. I'm calling people. I'm saying, man, I just shot the biggest deer of my freaking life. And then all of a sudden I look over on the hill to the left of me, and here comes another buck. He starts walking down the same exact path that the one I just shot came off of. And he sits there and he looks at me while I'm talking on the phone and just locks eyes with me. And I sit and look at this deer for like 10, 15 minutes. And then he finally walks up the hill, goes down the draw, and he's out of sight. But the longest wait of my life was waiting on Austin and Martin to get there so we can go recover this deer.
What'd you do, Aaron? What'd you do? What'd you do?
Deer of my life, man.
That's what I'm talking about. So where was he?
He was
Down
down there. He
there?
had just crossed the creek.
Really?
I thought he was 40 yards on the dot.
Wow. Let's wait for Martin to get over here. You ain't going down there yet?
No, I've not moved from right here.
Dude, I'm so hyped for you.
I'm composed right now, but on the inside, I'm still going
Freaking
a million
yes,
miles
sir.
a second.
Awesome, dude. Where's that arrow at? There he is. You found him? Yep, here he is, Martin.
It's Tops!
Is it Tops? Yes, sir, it is. That is a stud, Aaron. You got him, bud.
Let's freaking go!
He's a good one.
Head twisted.
Yeah, flip him over that way. Oh my gosh, dude, that is a brute. It's a stud, man. Look at this, Martin. He's a 12. It's Tops.
Oh man, you got a good?
Oh my god. Yeah. That's a...
Here, hold my phone real quick. I'm gonna pull him out of all this. Oh my god.
Look at that.
Oh, thank you, Lord. He's got a little flyer coming off right here.
Congratulations, dude. You shot Tops. That is a heck of a deer. Yep, that's the one. So he's got that one there, that one there.
I hit him right here.
That's the entrance?
That's the entrance, yeah.
Pretty far back.
Yeah.
He must have been quartered away towards you
He
slightly.
must have been a little bit, but
That's insane, dude. Yep. Congratulations, man.
thanks, Martin. You were right. You were dang right.
I told you when they start running, baby.
The good Lord told me it was Tops, Aaron. I'm telling you, he did.
Well, I didn't get no call from him, but I knew you'd get one tonight. If we could have stayed in the woods a little longer, we might have got one. I had one over the hill there.
Biggest deer of your life?
That's the biggest deer I've ever killed in my life.
Congratulations, buddy.
It's probably about 100 and what do you think, 40?
40.
140, yeah.
Good deer, buddy.
Yeah, man.
This is a deer that me and Aaron have had history with for a long time. Got pictures of this deer last year in the wintertime. When he was probably 2 years old. He's probably 3.5-year-old this year. He's got 13 scoreable points. A very impressive kicker coming off below his brow tine right here. That's how we were able to recognize him.
He's got a little flyer coming off of his G2.
Flyer coming off his G2. He's got another kicker coming off there. And another flyer coming off his G2 on his right side as well. Heck of a deer, Aaron.
Biggest one I've ever shot, man.
There's bigger ones out there.
There is bigger ones, but shot him at an angle at 40 yards downhill. He was quartered away towards him, or quartered away, and it was a perfect double lung hit. That's what we like to see.
That's right.
Super happy for you, Aaron. We're gonna go get him dressed up and get him caped and checked in.
Yep.
Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you, bro. Thanks so much.
Words cannot even begin to describe how grateful and thankful I am to all my friends and family that helped put this together, especially Austin. You know, getting access to the property and giving me access to the property as well. I just couldn't be any more thankful. Really can't be. Tops ended up being a mainframe 10-point with 2 kickers coming out of his base and a flyer coming off of his G3. He was an absolute monster. It's definitely going to be a hard one to beat, but they are out there. We just never know. We ended up measuring him that night, and he came out to be roughly 149 7/8. The deer that actually came in a few minutes after I shot Tops, we got him on camera later that night. And he was a mainframe 10-point with 2 kickers coming out of his bases. So we decided to name him TJ, which is short for Tops Jr., because we really do think that that's one of the Tops' offspring. Even though we've already killed our Kentucky bucks, the season's still not over. We still got some slickhead patrol to do, and we still got some bucks to kill in West Virginia, so stay tuned for that. 2023 season, we're going to try to make it even better. And we'll see you on the next episode of In the Mix.